Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today. If you are new, then welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back. Today I am working in the Stamperia watercolour journal. Now this little journal I sort of have set aside for faces. Something I'm not, well, I used to think I don't use many faces, but I think I do use quite a lot of people, but maybe not so much faces. So I'm going for a bit of a different sort of face today, a bit more of an industrial vibe. Well, not different for me, but different for this journal, I should say. And I started off by, I wanted to add some tape into the middle of that spread. The page looked a little bit like any paint or ink or whatever I was going to use would go straight through. So I got some of this very cheap masking tape. I think it was £1 in the range, and I just added it down the centre, but I wanted to make sure it was properly stuck because I knew I was going to be adding liquids on top. So I used the Liquitex matte medium to stick it down. And because I was adding it down the middle, I thought, well, whilst I'm adding it down the middle, rather than it looking just like I've put one bit in, I'll make it more of a feature, and we'll add some bits of tape to add some sort of texture into the background as well. So I decided to add in some extra bits of masking tape. So I'm using the matte medium underneath, and then I'm going over the top to seal it in. Now where I went over the middle of the page here, I did struggle a little bit to get it to go into that groove, because that's why I'm sort of pushing the book up, because I don't want to stick it down and then when I close the book discover that it moves because I've sort of gone across the crease rather than into the crease. I had a little bit of trouble with the end of the tape there, but eventually I think I just about got it how I wanted it. It's just a case of fiddling around until it did what I wanted it to do. Now I wanted to use watercolours today, and I'd have put that matte medium down, so I knew that that may be a bit of an issue. Now normally I would probably use clear gesso, but then I remembered that in my stash recently, a few months ago, I bought some of this Daniel Smith watercolour ground, which is meant to turn any surface into something that will accept watercolour. Now this was already watercolour paper, so it wasn't, you know, stretching the imagination too much, but I thought rather than using gesso today, I'd try this out to see if this would be a good option. Now it did say to leave it for 24 hours, which I have to admit I didn't. Then I got out that set of rub-ons because I wanted to use the colours from that to guide my page. Now on the right is a set of is a palette that's got some paint already on it, and then these are Rosa Gallery paints, and on the left is my palette of all my Rosa Gallery paints. I moved my bigger pans from a small tin that was already arranged, and I moved them into there as well, along with my my tubes that I've bought as well, because I wanted to make a whole Rosa Gallery palette. And I am going with turquoise, I think it's green quartz, and then it was burnt umber. That was it. So I was going with the colours that were in the rub-ons because I recently bought the rub-ons and I thought I would really like to use them, but I wanted them to go with the colours. So rather than just splodging down my paint, which I usually do, I decided to try to be a little bit more refined and did blocks. And that I felt also went with the very sort of horizontal and vertical lines of the tape, and with the whole sort of industrial vibe I was going for. So I started with the turquoise, and I went in with the green, and then I went in with the burnt umber. And I didn't worry about leaving them to dry. I wasn't worried if there was a little bit of mix in between them. I just sort of went in with the colours. Now I did leave them to dry for a bit so that I could then layer up some more paint. Now I'm using a different brush. That previously I just used a normal round brush, and this time I'm using an oval wash or a cat's tongue brush just to get a more sort of refined line. And I was going I was trying to match up with the same colours and then go along where the tape was. I sort of went off of that a little bit eventually. I just went a bit more with the flow, but just to add on some deeper shades onto the page. Next, I was going to go in with some rub-ons. Now, rub-ons aren't something that I have ever used that much, but I recently just been seeing that there's so many cool rub-ons in the art and craft industry, and I just thought it would be interesting. So I bought a few different ones. This one is from Aall and Create, and it is called, I will let you know, Teal Dreams, and you get 2 sheets in there. One of each design, and so they're each one big sheet, but you can cut them down. So what I do is I tend to cut off the bit that I want to use, and then I don't have a worry about messing up the rest of the sheet that I could then use for something else. You remove the backing, and then you get in the pack this little sort of wooden lolly stick to rub it down, and I've sort of find that they're just such fun to look at these days. It used to always be, it was just letters, wasn't it? When I remember when I was a child, it used to be letter rub-ons, and half of them wouldn't rub off, and they were a bit of a pain. But now they've just made them cool. So I've gone for a few different. So I've got a couple of 49 and Market. I've got one of Aall and Create, and I think I've got another Remnant Rubs because I only had one before that. So I just am adding on a little bit where I choose. So, and that's what I like about these big sort of sheets, because you can just take sections and put them on. And if you rub down and then you find that you haven't quite rubbed it, or you can just just peel it off gently and then lay it back down and re-rub, so that you're making sure that you catch all the bits. And because they're sort of sheets where it's a very abstract kind of design, it doesn't matter if you get little bits that you can then just add them somewhere else. I think they're really up to their game with the rub-ons. So I thought I'd just buy a few sheets just to see how I get on with them and see whether I like them. And certainly these ones were fun. And because I matched my colours to the rub-ons, it meant that they blended in really, really nice. And they just looked like they were a part of the whole design. They weren't something that had just been plonked on. They did actually sort of meld into my background really nicely. So because there was that sort of coffee stain in the design, I thought, oh, I'm going to get my coffee stain stamps. These are from Be Crafty, and as always, I will list what I've used in the description box. And I'd go in with the Sepia Archival ink, because that sort of matched in with the colours that were already in the background, and just add some extra stamping just to really build up that design, because I only had those 3 areas of the rub-on, and I felt that I needed a little bit more interest in the background just to match in with it. So once I'd done a bit of sepia, I went in with the patina, salvaged patina. Forgot what it's called for a minute. For some reason, it was a bit funny coloured. I don't know whether there was something already on the stamp or whether there was something on the ink pad. It wasn't coming out as I would usually expect the Salvaged patina to be, but it was fine because it had that grungy industrial vibe going on in this background anyway. And then I wanted to add some texture, more texture into the background. So I'm going in with the Stamperia cream paste. I'm still trying to get through this pot. When you're trying to get through a pot, it seems to go on forever, doesn't it? But well, that's good because it means I'm getting value for money and it's lasting really nicely every time I open it. It's still as lovely and creamy as it ever was. And this is a memory box stencil, I do believe. Now, it is an old one. I will put I think it's got a name. I think it's Mesh, and I think it's got a number. So I will put that in the description box. But, you know, obviously, it may be one that you would have to search for. Or, obviously, just use what you have. My aim with my videos is always take the ideas and then use what you have to recreate them if you want to. Now, these are some images from the two Maremi small art books. They are from Little Personas and the Bits and Bobs from the industrial ones. And my main feature is the face. It was a struggle to find any where it was just a face. So this was the nearest I got. But I love the fact that it's just a half a face and it comes in off the edge. So I wanted to have a bit more than just that onto the page. And I've already cut the images out because I didn't feel that you should need to, on this particular project, see that because it's more about the building of the background for this one. And I am using my glue rather than matte medium. And the reason I'm using the glue is because I know there are a few different layers on this page. So I wanted a bit more of a substantial glue, I should say, something that had a bit more gloopiness to it, a bit more body to it. Which this glue does. So I decided to add in that little sort of dome jar, and I added a bulb and not a dandelion, it's a dragonfly, and a little, I'm not sure if it's a clock or a barometer, something, or a dial, you know, something along those lines. And I just built up a little sort of picture, and I did it so that I didn't do it on purpose, but I realised afterwards I'd done it sort of diagonally across the page to get that bit of flow. I think my brain automatically goes there now, so I don't really think about adding that sort of flow in, but it's definitely so your eye flows sort of across the page. Now, for once I decided I wasn't going to add shading around these images. I felt that they were fine as they were, but I still do like to do something that is going to unite the page. So I'm going with the Peat Brown ink from Winsor & Newton just to add some splatters. And then because those little splatters are going onto the background and onto the main images, it's just coordinating the two together so they look like one piece rather than a background with things plonked on top. And finally, as always, I always have to add a sentiment. Well, not always, but 99% of the time I add a sentiment. And this is from the Tim Holtz Thoughts. And I just stick that on again with a bit of glue. It is self-adhesive, but I still add glue anyway. And here is my final double page spread. So thank you ever so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button. And at the end of this video, you will see a list of my lovely ever-growing members who are my super supporters. Thank you ever so much to them for their extra support that they give me. And if you're interested in becoming a member, then I will add some information in the description box below. So until the next time, bye-bye.